Good evening. It is SEC After Dark. We are back. It's Corey Burton, Jake Thomas, Jeb Beecham, and of course, my main man, Stephen Willis. What's up, gentlemen?
Howdy.
What is up? What are we drinking tonight, guys? I have a delicious Landshark Ale like I've never done before on any broadcast of SEC After Dark. So, yeah.
Yeah. I too am venturing out. Dos Equis Amber. It's just my favorite.
H2O for me.
Yeah, I just polished off a Coke and whiskey. So
There you go.
I'm free-handed tonight.
You going to a meeting, Jack?
No, I'm out, man. I gotta go get. I gotta stock up the refrigerator. I went through a lot in that championship game.
I bet you did, actually.
He did. He went through a lot of internet too, so we're good.
Yes.
Glad to have you, Jake.
Yeah.
And as you see from our man Jeb, tighten up, man. Titans they get the number one seed in the AFC, so that's exciting for Titans fans like Jeb. And you know what? The Titans are giving me more reason to like them, and the Falcons are giving me even less reason to like them. So, Steve, I'm sure that makes you happy, right?
Yeah, as long as the Saints beat the Falcons, I am extremely happy about that.
There you go. There you go. That's
especially when
good, right?
especially when you beat them with like a 6-string quarterback.
Yeah, you're on like
Yeah.
quarterback number 28, right?
Yeah, we're one step away from Alvin Kamara playing quarterback. Single wing action.
I mean, you know,
That's
that might not be a
insane.
bad
You can do
option.
it.
And yeah, this is Saints After Dark. So, yeah, we got an
NFL
interview
After
coming up
Dark.
with Sean Payton. No, just
Yeah.
kidding.
NFL after dark. Let's go.
Hey, I'm for it with the playoffs coming up. I'm sure that there was some game on Monday. I forget what the
Yeah.
score was, but we're going to dive into that a little bit. Jake, want to give you a little bit more of a chance to kind of talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly because again, you were having some internet issues last night on Best of the West. Once again, thanks for having me on Best of the West.
Yeah, man.
That was a lot of fun. Stacy's good people, man. It's always good to talk to Stacy. So,
Absolutely.
chat's up and blazing. If you want to join the show, jump on in. We got our first Go Dogs, so that's good right there. So, Jeb,
real quick before we get started, what do you think of my thumbnail, Corey?
Oh, that's great. I loved it.
You like that? I figured some property destroyed tonight would really.
There was some property destroyed tonight and a couple nights ago, probably even tonight. Honestly, Georgia fans are probably still celebrating.
Dude, y'all ought to. 41 years. Yeah, party it up. Party it up.
And by the way, SEC Shorts completely whiffed on the reaction video that they had set up all year long.
Yep.
They completely whiffed.
The Hope we leave in or something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Although it was funny, she was heading over to Texas A&M, but other than that part, yes.
I'm not even going to watch it now, so it's gonna get filed with the Katy Perry music video, just under never to be seen.
Dude, I wanted Les Sharp when I wanted Katy Perry.
Is Katy Perry the biggest villain for Alabama football out there today?
There
Pretty
you go,
much.
Steve. Yeah. She cursed him ever since she threw corn dogs out on game day.
Yeah, ever since game day, she hosted, Alabama lost. She performs at halftime of the championship game, Alabama lost. It's just a bad omen.
She's probably not selling a lot of records over there, no.
She ain't selling none in my house.
So what you don't know is Jake's getting ready to surprise Cassie with Katy Perry tickets.
No.
Going on tour with Katy Perry. So
No. She's a big Luke Bryan fan. I have no idea why.
What y'all don't know is Jake is going to perform Firework for Cassidy. And it's going to be a very heartfelt thing.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
I performed Purple Rain for you guys. I did that.
purple. That's after Firework, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to dress up like a shark
I might.
when you do that, like she did at the halftime show, the Super Bowl?
And just do, whatever it was doing. Yeah.
I have to go back and watch that.
Man,
Shark,
that was
maybe not.
hilarious.
Shark.
Yeah.
Shark. So, yeah. So apparently, the Katy Perry concert was interrupted by a football game. So let's
Yeah.
talk about that. Let's talk about that football game. First half, Georgia comes out. Alabama comes out like two heavyweight boxers, just kind of feeling each other out. Neither of them wants to throw the haymaker in fear of they're going to get one landed on them. Neither quarterback wanted to be the guy in the first half that was gonna make the catastrophic mistake. Bryce Young almost did in the first series. They ruled it incomplete, which I know Tom Brady perked up somewhere when he saw that video. And
Yeah.
so let's talk about the first half a little bit because one of the things that I heard a lot was a lot of people like, yeah, I turned that game off. It was 9-6 at halftime. It was boring. It's like, come on, man. Like, not every 9-6 game is created equal. I mean, I understand like the Bama LSU 9-6 game was one of the worst football games of all time.
Whoa. I
That was like
strenuously object to that.
it
That was
sloppy.
a classic.
That was
Yeah, classic slop fest.
But
This one wasn't. This one was. I mean, you were on the edge of your seat the whole time. You were just, each team threw punches. Defenses were just coming after you. I mean, it was a good, well fought defensive football game, which is not like a sloppy, quote, well fought game.
No, and I know I saw this in several places. I'm sure it's been said over and over. But to talk about the difference in SEC football and a lot of other leagues and its speed, and you got to see it just on full display in that game. Those were the most incredibly fast linebackers and defensive linemen that I've seen in a long time. No, neither quarterback really had much of a chance for a while there.
And
I mean, you had
too.
Yeah, who's the Alabama one? It's not Will Anderson.
Yeah, Will Anderson.
Will Anderson. Okay, I thought it was
Christian Harris, and then I was really impressed with Dallas Turner.
Dallas Turner,
he had a huge night.
Yeah, he popped.
And then Nakobe Dean on the other side, and just the entire Georgia defense. It was all the exact same. It was just amazing watching them run and thinking, how does anybody get anything done with that happening on the field? It was scary. I'm gonna be honest with you. As a fan of a different team besides those two, it's scary to watch.
Mm-hmm. And,
the one thing that I noticed in that first quarter, and I didn't really talk about this last night or anything, was that you could actually see the pea stains going down Georgia's leg to start that game, and they played like it. Their offense was completely discombobulated. Just if it wasn't for their defense, Georgia would have lost that game in the first half. They came out terribly. That defense kept them in there, and Nakobe Dean and his guy, whenever he got on Tyndall, and the next play Tyndall got the sack, it was like, okay, this is a different thing than before. They believe they can stop Alabama. Now, granted, Alabama at that point, I believe, had no J-Mo and no John Mechie, and they only had one real healthy, decent running back, and they weren't the same team that played in the SEC title game.
Well, I mean, they had a month to prepare without Mechie.
That is going to do wonders for the confidence, and that's probably explaining why the defense came out and looked like the Georgia defense instead of letting Bryce Young kind of carve them up. Because I think they over-respected him a little bit in the SEC title game. They over-respected Bryce Young, and because of that, he kind of picked them apart. But you saw an aggressive, fast Georgia defense that looked like the early 2010s Alabama defenses. What we all expected them to look like all year long. That's the Georgia defense you got from the very beginning, and it was just a matter of the offense catching up.
They just said, "F it, man. We're going to come after you. We're going to play. We're pissed off. We're tired of getting badmouthed. You saw it in the Michigan game. They carried it over into the Alabama game. They said, you know what? We're not going to go down and let him sit back there and pick us apart. We're going to come after him. And if he's going to make throws, he's going to make them, and he's going to get hit." And that's exactly what they did. And Bryce Young completed some balls after getting hit. And and he did a good job of doing that. But again, those hits took a toll, and this this defense was just. They just said, you know what, we can't do this. You know, we can't sit back. And the offense, I don't understand the start. I mean, obviously the first series, Stetson was about as nervous as you could possibly be. But
oh yeah,
you know, once he kind of got settled in, he completed his first pass or whatever. He got settled in. I still think the offensive game plan was a little bit suspect, and I kept having flashes of the SEC championship with the offensive game plan that Georgia came out with in the first half. I was like, I don't like this. I just we're trying to create Stetson into a pocket passer, and I still felt like we were over respecting the Bama defense, and I just didn't like it.
I think Georgia had 10 carries by the running back, like either midway through the third quarter or late in the third quarter, and it was a situation where it was like 10 carries for 130 yards at that point. I mean, they were averaging 13 yards a carry. Now, granted, there was a 67 James Cook yard run that was skewing the average there, but that's still a fairly dominant performance running the football, and they just wouldn't do it. And it honestly took the fourth quarter, Alabama, whenever they just decided to run Brian Robinson, and it kind of worked. It was like Tom Mockin was like, oh, yeah, we can do that. And that opened up everything from them being able to run the ball to it actually destabilized Will Anderson and gave Stetson Bennett enough time to throw the football. And then all of a sudden, everything started to work. And in the fourth quarter, Georgia just looked like Georgia, the Georgia that we'd seen all year. They finally looked like that.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Jeb.
That's definitely where it changed, as far as what I could tell, is when Brian Robinson started running the ball well. You thought, okay, Alabama's they found their groove. They're just going to take us over. But then Georgia just turned around and did the same thing. That's when they had the big run by Cook, and then White punching in at the end there. That nice drive that was like 4 plays all running. And then you realize, okay, Georgia can do this just as well, if not better. And from there on, it was a great game. So,
hi, Jake.
Yeah, he's back.
He's back. He's about to pull all his beard hair out.
Yeah, 56K Jake. Windows.
Yeah, Charter's getting a call tomorrow. This is bull crap.
No.
Get Jake a land shark, please.
Yeah, he's gonna get that Windows 95 one of these days. That's his goal.
Yeah, I'm moving up from Atari up to.
He's got that OG Windows.
Yeah. Gosh,
AT&T has fiber maybe in your area. You should check that out.
I'm sure they do.
So, one of the things that I don't want to say it bothers me, because it doesn't really bother me. You know, you just kind of let these nerds kind of talk. You know, nerds. You know, with the lazy takes out there, it's just kind of like. I think there's a lot of lazy takes out there as far as how this game went, and we talked about it last night a little bit. But the lazy takes of, they only won because Jamison Williams got hurt, and Georgia, there was a lot of injuries, and that's the only way they could beat them. And I'm like, come on now, like this game went deeper than that. You know what I mean? Like if Georgia would have blown them out, okay. Yeah, we beat an injury-depleted Bama. But, I mean, did it play a factor? Yeah, it was a little bit of a factor. But could Alabama have, bear in mind, they only lost one player during the game. So it's not like they didn't have, weeks to prepare without Mechie and weeks to prepare with, a banged-up Trey Sanders behind Brian Robinson. They had a month to prepare for the playoffs with a depleted roster as it was. So it's not like they couldn't have a plan. It's not like Ja'Cory Brooks is a terrible receiver. It's not like Billingsley is the worst tight end on the planet, or Latu is a dud. Like it's not like any of those guys are like that. So you have all this time. I thought there was going to be a better plan around Jamison Williams, and there wasn't. And that's what astounded me.
The one thing that has, I think, a little credence in this situation with J-Mo getting hurt, that everybody talks about that, is he was the one player that could stretch that defense. And, Corey, you know as well as I do, if the safeties don't respect the deep ball, you are done. You can do absolutely nothing. And those young guys came in, then it became a show me situation. Alabama had to hit a play, and those young guys just couldn't do it. So in that sense, probably that JMO situation probably didn't matter. Now this is what I say all the time. This was a 9-3 Alabama team that made 11-1 in a national championship game. This team had no business being in that game because all year it was Bryce Young and Jamison Williams. And that's really all they had. Because I think that the Bill O'Brien levels of players, I think we talked about this last night, Corey. What he needs to make his scheme work is it a fit for the guys that Sark needed his scheme to work. So you have 5-star players, but they might lose a star based on the scheme and what they're being asked to do. And I think overall that made Alabama just a skosh worse than they actually normally are. And that's the reason you saw down the stretch. That's the reason you saw A&M. I mean, Bryce Young is a generational player, maybe the best quarterback they've ever had. But otherwise, I mean, you just see a bunch of guys that don't really look like Alabama.
And that's the difference between Jake. That's the difference between Jake and Bill O'Brien and Steve Sarkisian. Sarkisian could take the three of us and make it work. Bill O'Brien sees Jamison Williams. He loses Jamison Williams. It's almost like you take his play card and burn it in front of him, and he has no clue what to do. Like he doesn't.
There was free agency in college football, and he's trying to figure out a way to get David Johnson on his team.
Exactly. He was trying to trade. I think deep down he wanted to trade Mechie for a walk-on tight end. So
trade Bryce for peanuts.
Maybe he wanted to trade for that washing machine they got rid of in that movie with Will Ferrell with the Flint Tropics.
Semi-pro, yeah.
He was trying to trade him for Bo Nix.
Oh God!
War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Internet, you can go out again.
It's harder. You're good now.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, like I just think that Bill O'Brien sees Jamison Williams and sees opportunity. He sees Mechie and he sees opportunity, but he sees everybody else. And he's like, okay, you guys are just complementary pieces. Just run your clear out route so we can get the ball to JMO and Mechie. And yes, that's an NFL style of thinking. It's not necessarily wrong. It's just wrong for this scenario. See, Sarkisian says, okay, I've got all these weapons. I've got a tight end that can run in Willa too. I've got Slade Bolden.
Cameron
Latou. What do I call him?
Will Latou.
Will Latou. Well, I'm sure Will Latou's great too, right? Cameron Latou, sorry.
You made Jalen Billingsley into a more than serviceable tight end in that offense.
Absolutely. I mean, like you have Billingsley as a huge piece under Sarkisian, did some great things in the middle of the field. Slade Bolden was a huge factor in Sarkisian's offense, and that's the value of Sarkisian. He could make those guys work. Like he could make Ja'Cory Brooks. You give him a month to prepare with Ja'Cory Brooks, Slade Bolden, and JMO, and I guarantee he would have had a plan that it wouldn't have mattered if Jamison Williams was late to the arena, or if they were bracketing him and they took him away. Like he prepared for teams to take away his weapons. Bill O'Brien did not.
It's the difference between the Norm Chow school that Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian graduated from, and then the New England Patriots, what they do to basically scheme up guys short and everything. That is the other side of the Saban personality. Because you got the Brian DeBall guys and the Bill O'Brien guys that have been in that Patriots tree that call things a certain way. And then on the other side, you do have the Norm Chow system. And they really are completely different systems. I mean, what they do in the Norm Chow stuff is absolutely fantastic. And I see something and it's like, oh, that was pretty cool.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's just a difference in that. So, but yeah, Jake, before you froze up, man, like, are you excited about Dallas Turner?
Oh man, that was. I mean, he's been coming out since I think he only had like 6 games under his belt, but that was kind of like his coming out game to the world. I mean, he was he was all over the place all night. And next year with him and Will Anderson on the edge, man, it gives me hope that we're going to have a lot more opportunities to get quarterbacks, because I mean it's going to be tough to stop both of them guys when they're on the field together.
Mm-hmm.
You also have Jaheim Otis coming in.
I heard that guy's pretty good. So
just a little bit.
All in all, not to beat this game to death. Just a classic game between two teams. I mean, I think, and I talked to a friend of mine at school today. He's a Bama grad, and we were talking about the game, and he said, this is the game that I wanted. Obviously, I wish the result was the other way around, but he goes, I went to bed knowing that, hey, Bama did everything they possibly could in this game. It was hard fought. It was a good game. It was, good effort on both sides, and Bama didn't lose it. Georgia just won it, and that was kind of the way he put it. But Bama didn't really do anything to lose the game. Georgia just made a few more plays than Alabama did.
You know what, Corey? One thing that is absolutely, and Georgia should absolutely think of this and hold this up with pride and everything, but how many times do you see an Alabama quarterback trying to do too much? In the fourth quarter, Bryce Young was trying to win that game every snap because he knew he had to, because his guys weren't helping him. He made some unbelievable throws in that fourth quarter that was just dropped.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and he just – that's the reason that Keely Ringo interception happened, because Bryce Young just all of a sudden just ramped up to the point where he tried to do too much.
He forced one down the field, and I think you could tell in a lot of throws he was kind of wincing up and pulling up because he kept getting hit, and so a lot of his throws started getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Like his deep balls he started missing on his deep balls where he doesn't normally miss, because he's trying to get the thing out so he doesn't get tattooed, and that had an effect on him. I mean, in the chat that we hosted on Rave on Sports, I kept saying, keep hitting Bryce, just keep hitting Bryce, and that worked.
Yeah, and my theory, we talked about it. Will Muschamp was a secret MVP of that game.
He was. He was indeed. So, but to Natty, congrats, Georgia. Oh, congrats to me, really. 41 years and counting. That one's over. The 1980 jokes are officially put to bed. We haven't won a national championship in a couple days.
Goes to Notre Dame now.
Yeah, so
1988.
That's right. Come on, Notre Dame. Actually, don't get with it, Notre Dame.
Actually, we're at about a decade, because it doesn't look like Florida's going to win it, but eventually Florida might be in that boat to where we're talking about it's 2035 and Florida hasn't won a national championship in 25 years.
They've gone on a SEC championship drought over the last 23 years. We're going to start saying that with Florida. Tennessee's got to get in the boat now.
Yeah. That's right. They're what? They're 99, 98?
98, yeah.
Hey, I'm 1962, but nobody, even cares about that.
Well, I mean, get an SEC championship appearance.
My dad was 12. Yeah, my dad was 12 when that happened.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Crazy. So you were just 112 when that happened, right?
Yeah.
Because you're immortal. Get it? See what I did there?
I'm like Kenneth Parcell.
Yeah.
It's too soon, Jacob.
Too soon, man. So let's look ahead then. All right. So, what does 2022 actually look like? I mean, the conference is interesting. We had some coaching changes, some teams that really started to play a lot better. Jeb, what did you do? I saw you tapping, and Jake went away.
We tried to wake him up. It didn't work.
Yeah. He's had a rough couple of days. So
he's gonna melt down.
Yeah, I feel bad for the representative at Charter that he's gonna light up tomorrow. So 2022. So you had some coaching changes. Florida hiring Billy Napier. I think that's a great hire. You have a South Carolina team that's on the rise. They were winners of the Duke Mayo Bowl. A team that should have went 2-10, won a bowl game, and that's good for them.
Looked pretty good doing it.
They did. They looked pretty dominant defensively. They did it with a wide receiver at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And that was impressive. You're going to see, what does Vandy look like year 2? Can they actually be competitive? That's their goal. Arkansas,
35 recruiting class in the country in year 1 for Clark Lee. That's actually a decent story.
Yeah.
Number 35.
It's pretty good for them.
Mm-hmm.
What does Arkansas do in year 3 under Pittman? Do they make a significant move in the West? Do they become contenders? Will Rogers at Mississippi State, what can he do for that program? Ole Miss, what does Ole Miss look like in 2022? Zach Evans.
We'll find
Luke
out after
Altmaier.
This weekend. Jackson Dart and Michael Trigg's supposed to visit.
So that'll be
this weekend's a big weekend. Mm-hmm.
That'll be a big weekend for the Land Sharks. LSU. What happens with them under
family?
Do they have a family affair in Baton Rouge?
Family.
I do declare.
I got the vapors.
Lord have mercy.
Oh,
Bless their
no.
heart. Yeah. So what happens with LSU? Does in all seriousness, what happens with Brian Kelly there? So let's look at the West first. How do we see the West? This is the way too early 2022 look ahead. SEC West. What do we see in there?
I think Alabama's going to be surprisingly good because I think Bill O'Brien is going to get the Jacksonville Jaguars job off of this.
Oh wow! How could they hire him after what he did to the Texans?
He can't be worse than Urban, though.
Well, that's true.
They talk about he only messed up when it came to player development, so he's going to take his hand out of that and just coach football. So I think he's going to do that, and I think
Just don't
Saban's
let him
going to
make
hire
trades, and they'll be fine.
Saban making back-to-back bad hires is not going to happen. So I think Alabama's going to be surprisingly good. I'm curious to see what LSU looks like. John's in the thread with Brian Kelly. What is going on? They poached Fouché or whatever from Arkansas. I saw that. Mm-hmm. I think Auburn has a chance to be dead last in the West. I just do not like what's going on the Plains right now.
Poor Jake. His internet freezes up, and now you're trashing his Tigers.
Yeah. And Mississippi State somewhere around 6th, and then 5 through 2. It's all kind of interchangeable. Yeah, A&M's going to go 8-4. They're going to get the top recruiting class ever and go 8-4.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun West. I mean, it's gonna be really, really competitive. I think the turd in the punch bowl is going to be Ole Miss. I think they're going to kind of upset the hierarchy there in the West. Obviously, you look at year in and year out, it's always Bama, LSU, and then who's going to be that third team that kind of comes in and really kind of makes things interesting. I think that team is Ole Miss again. And Ole Miss could really – Ole Miss is in the position now where they're fighting for that. Everybody's kind of fighting for that shotgun seat next to Alabama of who's going to be that team that gives that really puts the most pressure on Alabama. Because let's be honest, until Nick Saban retires, it's Alabama and then who's going to challenge them. That's how the West is usually shaking out.
Ole Miss pulls another 10-3. Like this year, they do back-to-back years. The year after that, they are in prime position to make the playoffs.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
they really are.
I mean, that's a realistic goal at that point.
And I think LSU's right there too. I mean, I think that. I mean, honestly, we joke around with Brian Kelly. We tease and all that stuff, but I do think that's going to be ultimately a good hire. I think he's, you give him that talent. He's recruited well. I think Alabama. I think LSU is going to be there as well. I think it's going to be Bama, LSU, Ole Miss right there, kind of in a bunch there at the top, and then I think you're going to have A&M, Mississippi State, Arkansas right there, making things interesting, and then I think Auburn is in your bottom half there with
the $30 million recruiting class is going to get them fourth in the West.
Yep, at best I think.
That's about right. Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, because Jimbo is stuck in 2012.
Oh, real quick, what's your gut? Haynes King or Max Johnson?
Max Johnson.
Okay.
Definitely Max Johnson. I think he's way better than Haynes King. He's more reliable too. Yeah. Yeah, I like Max Johnson, which will make them better. But again, it's Jimbo's on the control, so who knows? You never know what you're going to get.
Cocktail party's going to be fantastic next year, by the way.
It always is, Steve. Mm-hmm. It always is. We look at the East. Obviously Georgia. It's Georgia for now. But
I've already written them in the championship game in pencil.
Yeah, and written a little bit in bold, but honestly, I think when you look at the top contenders, you have to say Kentucky and Tennessee are right there, right there at the top. I think Kentucky is a lot like what Ole Miss could be in the West. That team that you don't really ever expect, but they're kind of always there. They've made significant improvements. I think they've had back-to-back 10-win seasons. Am I right on that?
I think it's 10-9, honestly. I think the 10-win season that he got was a couple of years ago.
So who's the Tank Habit look like? They're talking about you, Jeb, with your Tank Habit. That's what I would look like with a goatee, by the way. That's what I look like with facial hair.
Wait, was that boxing from back in the day?
Oh, that was Ultimate Fight, like original Ultimate Fighting.
Okay.
He was the it was before it was cool. It was before you really had to be in shape to do UFC.
I don't like where this conversation's going.
Jeb, I'm right there with you, man. If I stand up, I got a nice little tank myself. So, Tank Abbott. UFC used to have this guy. He was a Polynesian dude. He was about 6'6", 450 pounds or something like that. Doing UFC.
Wow.
That's what it was called, Ultimate Fighting Championship, and it was only on HBO. And it was it was back before it wasn't mixed martial arts. It was just fighting. So any style went. So
unscripted wrestling.
Yeah. I'm one of those people. I just don't know anything about USC. I do not like generally gladiator sports.
Yeah. You used to call it man slamming.
Yeah. And something I just don't enjoy and don't watch. Now, the last time I saw somebody fight was probably Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield, and he bit off his ear, and I just quit watching boxing after that.
Ooh, that's an old one.
That's I remember that vividly, but that's that was like a freak thing. But the last fight I saw was actually this morning at school, so that's good.
Oh, wow.
Wasn't a very good one though.
Is that a high school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is Hillwood High.
Now there's been some good fights at our school. Like when I say good fights, I mean like these people, you get in big trouble when you fight. So you almost
they get their money's worth.
Yeah.
There's been a few that got their money's worth.
Are you the cop teacher that pulls out the phone? It's like, no, stop, don't do that.
No. It's like Now I hear two people arguing. Like if I'm in the vicinity, I'm like, don't, no. Okay, good. And sometimes I get really annoyed if I have to turn around and go break it up.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
So, but back to the original point. What? I don't even know where we were going with that, but Georgia.
We're off the rails.
Yeah, we were very off the rails. Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, I think are the main three in the East. Florida just isn't there yet. Maybe they are under Napier. I don't know.
I think Florida's going to surprise next year.
They've got some questions to answer.
Yeah, Jack Miller is going to be a solving of all their problems throwing the football, and that's going to open up that offense a little bit.
Well, they need something to open that offense a little bit.
I think Etienne is an unbelievable get for those guys, and he's going to contribute immediately.
So the Jaguars cut him, and he's going back to college?
His brother is at Florida.
I know.
I think his brother is Trevor, by the way. It's
Trevor
weird.
Etienne. Yeah, they're from Baton Rouge, I think, right?
Yeah, but Trevor Lawrence at Clemson.
They have a kid together?
Yeah, that's.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Never mind. I'm not touching that.
Yeah. No. I mean, we could go there if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Good boxing. Yeah, there's no boxers these days. So, but yeah, I mean, just looking at South Carolina can make some things interesting in the East. Missouri and Vandy are just that Missouri.
I think Vandy's going to be a really good 2-10 team next year. 3-9.
They're gonna be competitive, and that's all you really want if you're Vandy. Just be competitive. Just have an identity, which they never found. Make sure you got to make sure your head coach has a pulse and is breathing on the sideline. That always helps too. Just
put a mirror under his nose periodically.
Yeah, make sure he's still breathing, because sometimes it was debatable. So the early look at the SEC, I think that's kind of how you shake it. I mean, obviously, until it doesn't happen, it's Alabama, Georgia, and the SEC title game, and those wars are going to be ridiculous. So, but we're going to transition to basketball. Before we do so, make sure you hit the subscribe.
Real quick, does John know when does Vanderbilt play LSU next? Because with Brian Kelly in Baton Rouge and Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, that game's a little bit interesting. Has some storylines.
Yeah, playing against his boss. John, do that research for us. Follow us on social media. It's right there below us. We're echoing across 30 different platforms, I think, again tonight. Subscribe to us. Find us on YouTube. Find any one of our channels on YouTube. Subscribe to all of them. Who cares? Leave some comments. Get involved in the chat like our guy John, Cassidy, Cody Caldwell hadn't been here in a while, so I'm gonna put out the bat signal for Cody to come back in here. We talked about Ole Miss. I thought that would be the bat signal for him.
He popped in last night, believe it or not.
He did for just a second. Called me Georgia frat boy, which ironically I never joined a frat. So
you had the haircut though. Maybe you could get the Avalon. Jeb gets it. Jeb knows what I'm talking about.
I like that movie.
This guy knows what I'm talking about. This guy definitely knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, I have never seen that movie. I was like,
more
man,
Adam Sandler.
I know. I was like, I don't know if I can do it with that. I was like, I love Adam Sandler, but I just don't think I can with that.
It wasn't racist because he was Jewish, so it made it okay.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about basketball. There's 3 games tonight. Let's kind of talk about the direction of these programs. I'll tell you what Georgia's not. Georgia's not a basketball school. It was a close game for a minute, but they got killed by Mississippi State. Cario Aguindo had 25 points for Georgia. Iverson Molinar had 28 points, 7 assists, and 3 rebounds for Mississippi State. Those were your leading scorers. It just came down to Georgia didn't have an answer for Molinar, especially in the second half, and I just things are getting a little shaky for Tom Crean. I just don't see him surviving and coming back next year.
No,
he's got to go, right?
He's done for. I mean, he's just done. Also, by the way, right now Arkansas is up in the first half, 50-15. So I think they took out some frustration on Missouri being 0-3.
Yeah. Missouri. Missouri's one of those clubs where that they, again, they could go either way, and I'm going to start paying more attention to basketball. I watched a little bit of the Hardwood Iron Bowl last night with Auburn. Talk about an impressive basketball club, Auburn, man. They never thought they'd turn into a basketball school, but they're officially a basketball school now. They're fourth in the country in the rankings, and they look really good. Yeah,
Bruce Pearl's a good coach. Just little problem with sticking to the rules, but once he's got that down.
Rules. What are rules? I see my
one
Gators
of his assistants went to prison, so that's cool.
That's good for the resume.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that coming up in interview. Yeah, so I did this. I made 4 Sweet 16 appearances, 3 Elite Eights at Auburn, and I had an assistant go to prison. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Well, somebody's got to take that bullet.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to go to prison, Ben. Oh.
Yeah. John, I see your Tigers on the hardwood, man. 12th in the country. They had a good one tonight against Florida, man. So, I think where does SEC basketball stand in the grand scheme of things? So I know the SEC doesn't get. I know SEC is all about football, and it's like the SEC is like up here, and like everybody else is like way down, like in the South Pole. When it comes to football, but in terms of basketball, it's like ACC, Big Ten, and then everybody else. And like Baylor's the premier program in basketball right now. So where does the SEC kind of stack up as a whole in the basketball world?
I think they're pretty good. I mean, if you look at the rankings right now, Kentucky is 3rd. Anytime Kentucky is 3rd, that is just a bully for your conference. Right below that is Tennessee. Impressive defensive team. We should have beat them, but we had a guy just jack up a 3 with 15 seconds on the clock whenever they could have held for the last shot. But Alabama at 24, and you look at others receiving votes.
Yeah, you have LSU at 12, Auburn at 4.
Auburn's good, man. Auburn's really good.
Yeah.
And most SEC fans, I know we focus on football primarily, but the SEC has always been pretty good at basketball. I mean, Kentucky's always historically been great. Vanderbilt's been good for a long time. Florida's won some national championships. I mean, the SEC's always been good. Maybe it's not the Premier League like it is in football.
It's not. At the top of our league's always been really good, but it's never struck me as an extremely deep league when it comes to basketball.
No, that's true. That's true. We've always had
it's deeper now, and it's because of the SEC network. Whenever they realized that it was about content for an additional thing like the SEC network, you saw teams invest in basketball that didn't normally care about basketball. Same thing's happening with baseball, by the way, on the SEC because of the SEC network. It's getting to the point. We asked you the question last night. At what point does the SEC just say screw it and just goes and gets 20, 24 teams and starts their own competition? If everybody wants to clog up this playoff expansion and what's going on, when Texas and Oklahoma comes into the SEC, that's a game changer. It's getting to the point where they can say, hey, Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State, North Carolina, USC, and Clemson, come on in, let's do this. We'll travel around. We'll have every time zone covered, and we'll just absolutely dominate these things, and it doesn't matter what they do.
Yeah, because they will never be able to compete. And I think you'd have more teams jump in the SEC boat than you would the other boat, because I think a lot of teams are just not – they just are just over all that crap, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
one thing that's interesting is the SEC put an exit fee for the first time in their history. They put an exit fee in their bylaws to where you have to pay $40 million to leave. And the SEC hadn't had to do that. I guess they just did it as a preemptive measure.
They did it as a, hey, if you're thinking about getting out of here, yeah, that ain't happening.
I think they put an exit. They put an exit fee on there. I would say they shouldn't be allowed to kick anybody out.
They're not. That's why they put the exit fee in.
Yeah. You can look at it both ways. That's what I'm saying. Like Missouri, everybody always.
if they were going to kick somebody out, they would have kicked Vandy out like 6 years ago.
They would never kick Vanderbilt out because they need a private school for the servers to get around the Freedom of Information Act. They can suck as much as they want to. It's not going to matter because they want that privacy.
And that's my point exactly. That Vandy would be the team that they kicked out, and they will never kick them out. The only other team I'd be worried about getting kicked out. I'm personally not worried about it, but if I'm a Missouri fan, I'm probably thinking, okay, we better not suck anymore.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to get kicked out either. But it's just weird
the
that
SEC
the exit fee got attached. That's all.
Maybe somebody was thinking about leaving. I bet Missouri was considering going to the Big 12.
Or South Carolina, maybe back to the ACC.
Yeah, I mean that wouldn't be a bad move for them, but
yeah, they know the players.
They do, but that would be a bad move financially because they're in the richest conference, and they have benefited from being in the SEC for sure monetarily. So, but yeah, you look at basketball. I wish Georgia would start caring about basketball. I think it's the reason why I don't care about basketball. Because of that reason, I try to watch it. I just can't because I don't really have a team that I can get into. I don't want to be a Kentucky fan just to be a Kentucky fan. I mean, I'll in the scenario where I need to pull for Kentucky, I will because Vinny's one of my people. But I'm not gonna be a Kentucky fan just so I can watch basketball. I'm not gonna be a Duke fan so I can watch basketball, or a North Carolina fan so I can watch basketball, or I want to watch basketball, and I want to be a Georgia fan when it comes to basketball because I'm a Georgia graduate. That's what I need to be. I don't like people that, and this is just a personal preference of mine. I mean, obviously, I don't like that people graduate from these major universities and they're like, yeah, I'm a Duke basketball fan, but I graduated from Tennessee, so I like football. I like Tennessee football. Like I don't like that. It doesn't sit well with me. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I grew up with a weird relationship to basketball too because Tennessee wasn't very good at it when I was younger. I always watched football and loved it. But I grew up in a town where our men's basketball team was terrible, but our women's basketball team won state several times. Their coach went on. I think he's the MTSU ladies coach now. But then, of course, Tennessee, women's basketball was always big. So, and I didn't have a pro basketball team around me, so I didn't really watch a lot of NBA either. Honestly, I grew up watching more women play basketball and men playing football. And it's been a weird experience now that I've gotten older and I actually really like basketball. It's a lot of fun to watch, but it's not something I've ever rooted as hard for as something like football because it just wasn't ingrained in me like that. And but the women's team was amazing. So
I think the one and done just really ruined it for me because I think you lose a lot of continuity with basketball. The transfer portal, the AAU, the recruiting stuff with basketball is just so disjointed. I just don't like it. And I hate that Severe Wheeler's at Kentucky.
That was always the problem with rooting for someone like Kentucky. Is you're right, their players just changed every year. It was you couldn't get behind people like you could in football.
Also, now when it comes to NCAA tournament, it's fun to kind of follow those SEC teams and just kind of see who shakes out where.
March Madness was always fun.
Leading the Lady Vols though is Kelly Jolly. I don't know what her last name is now, but she was one of my whenever I was undergrad in college and everything. She was a huge crush of mine. I loved Kelly Jolly. And now she's yeah.
I had you pegged as a Sue Bird kind of guy.
Yeah.
Or Rebecca Lobo.
I don't like horse racing.
Bring up UConn.
UConn. Gross. Jim Moore taking over that program, by the way. So, I want to get into basketball. The Hawks are finally good, so that's going to help. I grew up a Hawks fan. I've been to used to be the Omni, but Phillips Arena. I've been to an infinite number of basketball games, and the Hawks are never good.
Yeah. And they were the closest team to me. You're right.
They're never good. They're always even when they made the playoffs, they always got swept in the first round.
I went and saw a Mavericks game one time where they mic'd up the rim so you could hear it go boing. And they also played music while the game was being played. And I was like, what is this? I mean,
When did you go to a Mavericks game? Because I remember you telling us this. It's since I've known you.
yeah, it was back in probably 2008.
What were you in Dallas for?
Cotton Bowl. Ole Miss and Texas A&M or Texas Tech.
Oh, okay. You were
Yeah.
covering that for. Okay, yeah, I got you. Yeah, that's I mean, like stuff like that, just kind of. Michael Jordan ruined basketball because most of the fans are star-driven teams now, and it trickled down to college basketball. I wouldn't say Michael Jordan ruined the game of basketball. Michael Jordan played in, I think, the greatest era of the NBA, the most competitive era of the NBA.
The
Back
one
when
and
you
done
could,
ruined basketball, and analytics ruined basketball.
this whole like, and yeah, it is a star-driven league now, but that's a lot due to the one and done, which has just completely destroyed teams. I think the free agency rules in basketball, the contracts are shorter, so you have a lot more movement in basketball too, and the players just kind of run the league. And
1996 New York Knicks. That was not a star-driven team, but it was in the Eastern Conference Finals.
because they beat you to death.
Y'all, they just beat you down. What is his name? It's not Anthony Davis.
Mason.
Anthony Mason. John Starks is the little scrappy two guard. Oh man,
Patrick Ewing. Charles Oakley. That team was so tough, man.
that team
the
was
Pacers,
a fist fight team.
The Pacers were built just the same way. They had Rick Smits. They had the Davis brothers, Reggie Miller, Mark
we're not
Jackson
even talking about the bad boys.
the Bad Boy Pistons. Well, the Bad Boys, they're the ones that got it started with the whole like because the
It's
80s
the Jordan
were
rules.
physical.
It was the Jordan rules.
Yeah. It was, basketball wasn't an overly physical sport, not because they didn't want to be, just because they just didn't really know that they were capable of that in the 80s. Like there was some physicality, but it really wasn't until like the mid 80s, the Celtics kind of started that way. Then you started with Chuck Daly in the mid 80s. He kind of started like the Celtics, the Pistons, and the Lakers kind of started beating each other up. And then that became the style of play for the 90s. And it was really influenced by the Bad Boy Pistons. But the Celtics with Bird, McHale, Parrish, and those guys, they kind of made the Lakers a tougher team, and the Showtime Lakers kind of made basketball fun. So if you really wanted to pinpoint who was the original star-driven team, it was the Showtime Lakers. Who was the original punish you team? Was Chuck Daly and the Detroit Pistons. They turned the Celtics into that. I think, with Isaiah Thomas and eventually they got Rodman, John Sally, Bill Laimbeer. They just physically punished you.
Oh, Laimbeer is maybe Christian Laettner, but other than that, Bill Laimbeer is probably the most hated basketball player of all time.
Exactly, and I honestly, off the court, I think he's a really nice guy. Unfortunately, but on the court, he was a complete turd. His sole mission was to put you on the floor, any way possible. He was dirty.
Yeah,
very dirty.
Yeah, people don't realize that if they started watching the NBA in around 2005, they don't realize what the 80s and 90s were like. And what they could get away with. You couldn't play zone defense back then. There was such thing as an illegal defense.
Yeah, that was illegal. You had to play man. And coaches like Pat Riley would fine his guys if someone drove into the paint and didn't end up on the floor.
Oh man, see that's. Everybody talks about what basketball, like analytics have destroyed basketball. You see players with an open layup going to the back, dribble out to the 3-point and just throw up a 3-shot. And nobody criticizes it at all. It's just the way it is. And, there's no mid-range game. There's no subtlety to the game because it's all analytics driven. And they just, Steph Curry is a product of being the best player in this analytics-driven society. He would not survive in 1997.
There's a lot of guys in the NBA that wouldn't
Yeah.
survive in 1997 nowadays. I think LeBron would eventually
He'd figure it out. He'd figure it out.
He'd figure it out, but he's a freight train. But I think he'd have a hard time. I think
People
Rodman
don't-
would have ate his lunch.
People forget that Kobe struggled when he first came into the league with the physicality. And then as the rules changed and lightened up, Kobe became Kobe.
Well,
But
those guys retired off.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys that were beating him up were older veteran players.
Mm-hmm.
And as they started retiring, Kobe started taking over because he was groomed by that. He was developed by getting the ever living shit knocked out of him all the time.
Yeah. And that's just the way they played. 6 fouls, use them.
Yeah. And get your money's worth.
Yeah.
You're gonna foul him. And there was and to get a flagrant, you about had to shank somebody.
Yeah.
To get a flagrant.
Right now, you breathe heavy on their face, you get a flagrant. I mean, it's the reason people want the NBA to be something special, but deep down they look at it and go, it's not what it was. It's just not what it was. It's a bunch of athletes playing. It's like the Harlem Globetrotters and the Washington Generals. Every time somebody has the ball on offense.
Yeah, and I wish there was some more physical play, and it would help if there were some rivalries. It would help if there was a few teams that just genuinely hated each other. I think that would help. I think that would help the NBA. I think if the NBA was a little bit more physical of a game, I think you would see the ratings go up. The ratings are starting to go back in the right direction with the NBA. I've watched a few NBA games. It is getting a little bit better of a product, but there's going to have to be some changes. But since we've turned into NBA After Dark, we're going to cut it off right there. Steve, we're gonna let you go. There's going to be plenty of time now for basketball talk. We'll have some signing day things. We'll get you caught up on signing day. And we'll kind of get you caught up on how incoming signing classes look for the teams around the conference. We'll take a look at that. We'll follow the round ball a little bit. We'll talk some off-topic stuff. NFL playoffs. We'll talk a little bit about that as well because, let's be honest, it's interesting.
Yeah, and if there's football news, we will talk about football news because this is still the SEC and football is what pays the bills.
Exactly.
Right.
So any big football headlines, we'll take a look at basketball and we'll just kind of talk about what's out there in the world. And so it's exciting stuff. I mean, the Titans, who are steadily becoming my number one team as well, Jeb, are going to make a run at the Super Bowl. So there might be a situation
let's pour one
where,
out for $56K Jake with his internet.
Exactly.
And his Prodigy service.
The poor people at Charter tomorrow, I feel bad for them.
Yeah.
But we are SEC After Dark for Jeb and Steve Willis, and the now internet deceased Jake Thomas.
Net zero Jake.
Net zero Jake. We are SEC After Dark, brought to you by BetOnline.ag. And if you want to add to that list, please let us know. But we thank you for listening. We thank you for finding us. We'll catch you back here next week. So long and see you later. Go Dogs. Howdy toddy.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Corey.
Go Big Orange.
No, nothing sucks like a big orange, Jeb.